Nick Lizun, please come forward. You've seen the drill, 5 minutes opening address, and please begin once you're seated. Please begin now.
Okay, good morning, committee members. My name is Nick Lizun. Thanks for this opportunity to comment on Bill 132, to enact the Ontario Fair Hydro Plan of 2017. I'm a local president. I'm also Milwright of Local 838, represent 1,000 workers in Kitchener-Waterloo. Average wage about $17 an hour. And so I stand here before you today, or I'm sitting, to represent myself and my members. We need accountability, we need controls, and we need oversight in the out-of-control debt that is being accumulated by Hydro One. And we need these to ensure that the taxpayers are not burdened with this debt. Hydro One has a long outstanding debt of $10.23 billion. On average, between 2007 and 2016, this equals about $1 billion a year. Unless this debt is contained and continues to grow at the rate, taxpayers for many decades will continue to be held accountable and responsible for the debt repayment. As it stands now, $600 million of this debt is scheduled to be repaid October 18, 2017. And the debt repayment stretches out as far as 2064. We need responsible governance to bring the debt under control. We will continue to refinance and restructure this debt, and it just kicks the can down the road for future generations to pay. Today's government of Ontario is selling off its stake in Hydro One for a short-term gain, but a long-term loss. Today's government needs to maintain a majority of control and ownership to correct the wrong that this debt has caused and to relieve the hardships on taxpayers that they have endured. Financial responsibility and working with the utility companies to reduce the cost is a way forward to reduce this debt. It is working with utilities, they could eliminate inefficiencies, duplication, and a backward spinning of wheels with idle action. What I mean by that, I've negotiated where I work for 16 years, and a lot of the times stuff is on the table and it's just have meetings, and nothing gets, no action is done. So we have to take action on the recommendations that are brought forward. There needs to be an independent organization responsible for investigating expensive, inflexible private contracts that are now in place. Corrective action is needed to renegotiate or cancel, once they come up for renewal, the findings of this committee. Oversupply and the need to sell our oversupply at a discounted price at a cost that is being burdened to the taxpayers is not right. The issue also needs to be taken up by an independent identity to come back with concrete actions and answer some of the questions. Why and how did we get here? And how do we go forward from this point? I encourage this committee to incorporate a list of checks and balances in place in this legislation to hold people accountable. We need to control the debt before we can reduce the debt. We need to think of the taxpayer and put them ahead of the debt and look at Bill 132 as the Ontario Fair Hydro Plan. This is a fair plan, so let's make it fair for all taxpayers. Thank you for letting me speak before you today.
Thank you, Mr. Lizun. To the NDP, Mr. Tablins.
Yeah, Mr. Lizun, thank you very much for coming in this morning. I appreciate you taking the time and preparing your remarks in advance, all of the things that go into coming before a committee. As you're probably aware, the Fair Hydro Plan, after the first decade, ratepayers in Ontario will be paying back something like $40 billion in accumulated interest and debt. Does that worry you, given that you're also worried about the Hydro One debt?
Yes, because where does it end, right? It's an accumulation of debt that continues to grow, and my children, my grandchildren, who knows how far down the road, it's going to be a concern if it's not brought under control. How can we control this debt? Yeah, but it is a real problem, I see.
Are members of your union and people in your community aware that hydro prices will start to shoot up very rapidly after this 4 years of reduction?
I've been, our last membership meeting, I brought it up in front of our membership that, there's a short-term window where our rates are going to go down to 2% and then escalate up to 10%. But the problem is, like, for how long, right? Like, the members are concerned because, they're not making $40, $50 an hour
Yeah,
like some
that's right.
people. They're making $17 an hour. So just to keep their head above water, it's worrisome, right, in the future.
Okay. And I'm assuming that your members today are having a tough time with their hydro bills. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Would you and your membership prefer an approach that dealt with the structural problems in the hydro system rather than just taking on more debt?
Yes, that's sort of where I was, the structural problems. If you don't get that under control, I don't see how you get the debt under control. I think whatever the underlying issues are have to be dealt with, or it just continues to escalate.
No, I would agree. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your response.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabbins. To the government side, Mr. Potts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lizun. Thank you for coming, and congratulations on being elected to president of your local. Got a lot of respect for people who put themselves out there to represent their community, so good for you for doing that. And thank you for coming down here today, and I'll pick up on what Mr. Tabbins was saying about the hardship some of your membership are having with their bills. So you would agree that they'd be very appreciative of at least a 25% reduction on their bills as part of a short-term relief, as we then address longer, mid, and long-term solutions to the structure of hydro plant?
Well, of course, everybody likes a reduction, but it's a reduction that is a stopgap measure, in my view, that if I agree with what you're saying, if there's measures taken through this committee and put into legislation that holds them accountable, that there's going to be some structural differences made to look at those inefficiencies or why we got to where we are today. I agree with you, yes.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm assuming as a steel worker, you work for a private company, and a private company that does a good job of providing goods and services and representing and having fair employee relations and such. So that I just want to acknowledge, we were talking about the partial privatization of Hydro One. Are you not supportive of the fact that even the private sector can deliver goods and services in an effective way and employ responsibly employees in their workforce?
That's argumentative. Yes and no.
That's partly why we're here.
It could be, but if it's left and the government has no say in the matter, then your hands are sort of tied. I know it's the OEB that sets the rates, right? But still, if it becomes in the public's hands or goes private, and the board decides, we're so far in debt, we're $30 billion in debt, then I don't see how that ties the hands of the OMB to say, hey, well, you know what, we have to approve these rate increases. So I think something has to be put in place to whoever's responsible to make sure that things are done. Like I know where I work, and that's the problem is we sit and we have these meetings, but it's kicked down the road and nothing's done.
Well, keep up the good work and look forward to seeing you here more often, maybe with the high-speed train that's coming from Waterloo.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potts. Argumentative, I'm going to remember that word. Mr. Yakubuski.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lizun, for coming to join us today. That high-speed transit will probably get here about the time we pay off this new debt. That's another election. Yeah, I'm an optimist. Look, you talked about a lot of things, and you talked about the structural issues, and I appreciate Mr. Tabbins raising it as well. You talked about, the spilling of hydro, the selling of electricity at zero or below cost. And nothing that is in this plan addresses any of that. This is simply a refinancing plan. And your members, who's not going, when you're struggling to pay a hydro bill, who's not going to say, yes, I'm happy to take the 25% discount, and they're hoping against hope that somehow the future is going to be brighter, because they're having trouble paying that bill today. Is that not correct?
Yes, yes. It's similar to saying, I'm gonna give you $1 raise. I like that, but tomorrow I want another $1, because it's a short-term gain and your memory is short, right?
And it's not going, so the bills down the road, this 25% decrease, which is going to happen whenever they pass this bill, is going to be for a very short period of time. And your members who are struggling, when they've got another $45 billion, according to the Financial Accountability Officer, and the Auditor General is going to take another look at this as well, because she's very concerned about the shell game that she called it, that the government is playing here, that your members are going to be faced with much greater hardship down the road, even though today it looks like a bonus. If they really understood, because it's complicated, to clearly understand what this was going to mean to them, your younger hires, or to the children or grandchildren of those who are getting close to retirement themselves. If they had a choice, would they not rather not put that debt onto the next generation?
For sure, for sure. We have to get that under control, otherwise that debt will never go down.
So they're taking the house and they're putting some new siding on it, but ignoring the fact that the foundation is crumbling, they're making no structural repairs, and hoping that somehow the house continues to stand. Is that a pretty fair analogy?
That's a good analogy, yeah. That structurally you have to do something to enforce the foundation, or like you said, the whole system.
Of all the shell games that this government has played in the last 14 years, do you think this is the most cynical example yet?
30 seconds.
I'm not.
I know there's so many.
I'm not a politician. Yeah.
There's so many. I know it's hard to pick.
I know, but this one is something that is, something that it keeps on creeping up and up and up. Like, where does it end? There's probably many more, like you said, but.
Thank you, Mr. Yakubuski, and thanks to you,
Thank you
Mr.
very